Hello, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to our webinar, Export Opportunities in South Carolina. I'm Erica Stevens. I'm head of the South for Welsh Government based in Atlanta. I cover South Carolina as part of my region, and I'm responsible for trade and investment and support Welsh companies looking to expand out to this region. So I'm joined today by Jacob Hickman, who's Director of Business Recruitment at Upstate South Carolina Alliance, and also by Russ Frohnberger, who's President of Global Consulting, also based in South Carolina and works closely with Welsh companies out here. So before we begin, I'm going to go over a few kind of housekeeping points. Firstly, to let you know, the webinar will be recorded. Please also ensure that your audio and video are turned off if you haven't already done so. And we'll be taking questions at the end of each of the speakers' presentations, so you'll have a chance to ask questions. You can use the chat function to pose questions, and as I mentioned, we'll answer them at the end. Anything that we aren't able to answer, or if we need to come back to you, we'll happy to be follow up with you as needed, and we'll definitely be sharing the contact details of our speakers today. And after the webinar, we'll be emailing you a short post-webinar questionnaire. We welcome your feedback just so that we can make future export market briefings of superior quality. Next slide, please. So here's just kind of an overview of the agenda. Kind of welcome. We'll have an overview of the economy in South Carolina and Upstate South Carolina Alliance, of the Upstate region in particular and the opportunities there. A case study from Russ, and then I'll cover some of the Welsh Government export support that you can expect and what we can offer in our overseas office, followed by Q&A, and then we'll do a brief wrap up. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Jacob to cover South Carolina and all the exciting things going on there.
Yes, thank you, Erica, and thank you everybody for carving out some time for us this afternoon. Russ and I are excited to engage some of the wonderful companies in Wales and work towards a strong relationship with companies that are interested in the U.S. and specifically South Carolina. Next slide. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So what I want to communicate to everybody on the call today is one, South Carolina is a business-friendly environment. It is a smaller state with a population of about 5 million people. And the reason that we thrive and have had so much success over the past 30 years in attracting companies, specifically foreign direct investment, is due to the established business-friendly policies, the logistical component regarding where we're located in the Southeast, and then our ability to accommodate companies from all over the world. Next slide. This is a map of the U.S. lit up at night, and I like to show this as a visual to give folks an idea of density in the U.S. and show where a majority of the population resides. The U.S. is a large country. It's like a bunch of different countries wrapped into one big landmass. So you can see on this map, there's quite a bit of density in the southeastern part of the U.S. And over the past 30 years, there's been a lot of migration of companies and population down to our area in South Carolina and Georgia and North Carolina as well. And a reason for that is quality of life is exceptional, but on the business side, from the shift in migration of the companies, is the cost of operating in the Southeast and South Carolina. And that's relative to power, taxation, the cost of housing, and labor. The second reason is labor and the talent pool that we have here, with a heavy concentration of engineering talent and business focused talent, and then geography and our ability to reach a majority of the U.S. population within a day's drive, and also the density of companies that have located in the Southeast and the proximity that South Carolina offers for companies to expand their business once they get on the ground with our business-friendly environment There's a lot of opportunity in the Southeast within a couple hours drive of my region of South Carolina to grow your business as well. So the idea is to make it sustainable and then also position you for long-term success. Next slide. As I mentioned, the proximity, and what I like to reinforce to folks is, you know, the U.S. is different all over depending on where you are. So in the Northeast section, up in the New York area, the Midwest, and over on the West Coast in California, it's very expensive to operate. So there's a lot of risk involved in companies going to the more well-known, popular destinations for international folks to travel to, but that does not translate well into business-friendly environment and the way that government treats business. So down in South Carolina, we've got all the right DNA to support companies and get them here in a low-risk environment, and again, help them grow organically over time. Next slide. So I like to focus, of course, on my team and the upstate region of South Carolina, and you can see the pocket there. I'm responsible for representing 10 different communities, counties within South Carolina. This particular pocket of South Carolina is very much an industrialized environment, but there's a lot of emerging technology that has migrated and also grown organically within the communities over time to support that industrial growth. So a lot of automation, a lot of technology in terms of software and programming, that automation and the machinery that goes into the larger operations like BMW and Lockheed and Michelin. And we also have the population to support that. So you can see we sit between Charlotte and Atlanta on a major interstate corridor, I-85, and we draw off of that. So arguably that corridor within the southeast of the U.S. is the fastest growing corridor for businesses in the U.S. Next slide. So you get here, and how do you get around? I mentioned proximity, but you know, within an hour and a half, you're in Charlotte at a good international connected airport. 2 hours, 2.5 hours to Atlanta. But we also have a very nice, essentially brand new airport with GreenvilleSpartanburg International. While we don't have any commercial international flights, the reason they classify it as an international airport is their ability to clear customs. So we have a heavy cargo operation at that airport that does direct flights to Munich 5-6 times a week. So we've really focused on the infrastructure as it relates to being able to move not only goods in and out of South Carolina, but also people. Next slide. So I mentioned infrastructure, and that relates to not only the people and the talent and the university systems that help sustain a pipeline of folks in the workforce, but also the tangible component to infrastructure, which would be the port system. So on the map on previous slide, and we talked about South Carolina, the proximity to the coast, you can drive across the entire state of South Carolina within 3 hours. The state has invested heavily in the logistical elements of the state for goods and products. So we have a port in Charleston, which is 3 hours from my particular pocket in South Carolina. And we did a harbor deepening project to support the post-Panama expansion years ago. And so now we, as of September last year, are able to support the mega ships and the mega freight lines coming into South Carolina. And then that is connected to an inland port facility right on the backside of BMW and GSP, where we are in the upstate region of South Carolina. Next slide. These are the industry segments that my team tends to focus on. And again, it just falls in line with the DNA of our region and what the support systems are equipped to do in terms of talent and cost structure and so forth. So you can see here where we spend a lot of our time focused, but that doesn't mean we don't look at all types of companies. The idea for us in the upstate region is to be innovative and creative and provide a platform and a vehicle for companies to land in the U.S., mitigate that risk, and grow regardless of the type of profession that they are in. Next slide. Kicking off in the 1980s, we were able to secure Michelin's North American headquarters. And then shortly after that, in the early 1990s, we landed BMW that does essentially all the X series production worldwide. So that differs from other OEMs internationally that have landed in the States, to where they put up a facility and then that facility is specific to the United States. BMW does the X line worldwide. So again, the infrastructure is important for companies because 70% of the BMWs that are made here in the upstate of South Carolina are exported across the world. So the area, going back to infrastructure in terms of people, all the services that you need as a company to grow are well equipped and have adapted over time to interact and engage with companies all over the world. And we have a very broad talent pool of folks that can support you regardless of where you're coming in from, and be a partner with you in that journey to the U.S. and make sure that once you land here, you're a part of the South Carolina family. Next slide. These are just some names that people tend to recognize, and I like to show the numbers just because it validates the comments that I make to companies that are considering this area. A lot of this investment is reinvestment, so companies are expanding and growing as time moves on. And the reason they're expanding here and not putting facilities in other parts and pockets of the U.S. is because we have stepped up to the plate and provided them with a long-term strategy and sustainable platforms to enable them and equip them to grow their business over time. Next slide. This is another component just to show you and validate the comments that come out of my mouth today on the webinar. I get paid to talk about how great South Carolina is, but we're also recognized by our constituents and our competition across the U.S. as how are you guys doing your business attraction strategy. And we are a benchmark for a lot of other states and regions across the U.S. on how we implement different types of support programs for businesses. Next slide. I mentioned the competitive advantages with geography and cost and talent, with our government being able to partner with companies and show them a path in their journey to reduce costs and mitigate risk, is why people have a very high level of comfort in residing in South Carolina, because we work hard with companies to make sure that we make it an area that is suitable for long-term business growth. Next slide. With all this international investment and a lot of domestic relocation and expansion, we have a lot of great headquarters operations. So even though we are very much an industrialized environment, we've got a lot of good technology and various types of companies that have decided to call the upstate region of South Carolina their permanent home because of our ability to attract that talent as a blend of the cost geography, but also the quality of life. So you can recruit people effectively to this area from other parts of the country because of the cost and the ability to have a nice house on a lake or a golf course, and then find great opportunity business-wise. So your dollar goes a very long way in South Carolina. Next slide. This is all part of the system that has been created in South Carolina. So our educational platform, the major university system here, the four-year university in the upstate region is Clemson, which is heavy on the engineering, and they've established, not unlike a lot of places across the world, different types of industry-focused research facilities where we house not only PhD programs and certain types of industrial programs, but business environments and incubators so that companies are on campus with PhD students and collaborating with the various types of folks that are also residing on the business side. So it's just a good fostering program and platform for companies to come in and interact with other companies that are also trying to grow their business, and then also engage with the students that are coming through their various programs. So we've got the education component that I think is very attractive and really helps elevate companies within this particular area. Next slide. Not only in South Carolina, but we look at it as a mega region in the Southeast. And what I'd like to reinforce to everyone here on this call today is, use us as a platform and as an example and as a benchmark as what you should expect for a high level of service from government and public private sector support as you engage various parts of the U.S. We don't just look at it from a small micro scale, just Clemson and South Carolina and the University of Charleston, but also what are the other strong research institutions in the Southeast that are part of that pipeline for future workforce and technology-driven type companies. This is it. In the Southeast, we're surrounded by a number of wonderful institutions in various states that we include as part of the Southeastern corridor for companies to land somewhere and make sure it's a good fit and the ability to attract the talent that they will need. Next slide. I've already mentioned the concentration of engineering talent. This area historically is a textile region that has transformed itself into a precision manufacturing, technology, innovation, creative corridor that is all just expanded on some of the bigger names that I've mentioned in my previous comments. So you've got the Milliken and the AFL and Milliken doing all different types of engineering materials type activity within this region, and that has resulted in a lot of that talent pool coming here and residing here long term. Next slide. This is just an example of the different types of facilities in the area that you can be a part of as an international company. And regardless if you end up in South Carolina, our university systems collaborate with different types of companies across the U.S. So, for example, Clemson has done numerous projects, not only with the automotive side of things, but Harley Davidson doing motorcycles. So it's really more of a mobility type mechanism for companies to collaborate with people and work on the mobility and the technology behind how we move goods and people in and out with aerospace and automobiles. Next slide. So getting down to what my team provides, I'm not a government person. My team is a public-private partnership. So I do get money from the government, but we also get money from about 200 companies in South Carolina that fund us, which enables us to travel to Wales and interact and engage with companies and coach them and consult them on the advantages of being in South Carolina and how we help them navigate that sometimes scary journey to the U.S. We try to make it not scary, and we call it demystification as we partner with companies and show them that pathway. And this is part of that, the real estate element to where we are. That is a response to companies wanting to come in their initial phases in a smaller business setting. So we have different facilities that allow and accommodate companies to come here without having to open up a large facility and spend a lot of money on real estate and leases. And this is our answer to how do we better foster companies and give them a path to just get them here with a beachhead operation, as we say, and then help them graduate and elevate them, and then eventually over time they'll need a bigger space, and we've got all the support you can handle for that. Next slide. This is just an image of one of our downtowns. This is Greenville, and a lot of redevelopment work has happened over the past 30 years. So our downtowns are lively on any given night, Monday through Friday, and into the weekends. It is a lively place with plenty of great dining experiences. So again, it all comes together in terms of why does a company want to move to the upstate of South Carolina? It's because we have that good blend of not only the business friendly side, but the family friendly side, and you can live here and grow your business and it just be an incredible quality of life for you and a great experience for you, the people that come to work for you, and the people you're trying to attract. Next slide. So my team, in a quick commercial for the best way for us to support the folks on this call and other folks in Wales that may be interested, consider us a single point of contact. And like I said, if you're scouting other parts of the U.S., that's okay. Let us show you and provide you with different types of the business analysis and the business case for why South Carolina makes sense. So if you need to interact and engage with different types of South Carolina companies, that's a part of what we like to do with companies that are curious about being in South Carolina. So I guess in my final comments, what I'd like to tell everybody here today is years ago, well, it wasn't that long ago, back in 2019 or 2020, I'm sorry, the years are all jumbled up these days. So in 2020, we worked towards a program, the demystification program, with people in Ireland, and we brought over 12 different companies to South Carolina, and we did a full day of classroom work with those people to go through IP, how do you structure your company, labor laws, just so we could make them more comfortable and make them realize that the U.S. is not as scary as some people think. And then for multiple days, we were driving around and meeting with companies in South Carolina to talk about doing business in South Carolina. So the idea is not to just open up an office and hire a salesperson in the U.S. to be the catalyst for your operation in South Carolina, but by being over here and being engaged with South Carolina companies, you can work towards business and then have a revenue stream and then open up your office. So we partner with companies, and we're really excited about the opportunity to work with Wales and work towards a similar program and how we demystify and elevate companies and get them here in a high level of comfort, and then be a partner with them in their continued growth in the U.S. So with that, I will put my speaker on mute and pass it along.
Thanks for that, Jacob. That was very informative. Lots of synergies with South Carolina and Wales, like in engineering and manufacturing. And I'll add, having lived in South Carolina and being nearby now, it's very friendly, welcoming culture, and Greenville is a great city. So I'm going to hand it over now to Russ Frohnberger, who will speak about case studies of Welsh companies that have done this before and grown their business in South Carolina. So over to you, Russ.
Thank you, Erica. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to start just a bit of background. My first, the beginning of my relationship with Welsh government was in 2003. I was part of a delegation from South Carolina that visited South Wales. We were hosted by the predecessor group, which was known as Wales Trade International. That was the trade group. Before the end of 2003, I was retained by Wales Trade International to be their Southeast U.S. representative. And I did this through 2011. My remit was to assist Welsh SMEs find trustworthy American agents and distributors for their products and services. SMEs were referred to me, and we worked together to locate potential American partners, primarily in South and North Carolina. These are my primary markets for having helpful economic development contacts. There are a number of companies that I helped over those years, but my favorite had a really good result. There's a company in South Wales by the name of Superrod, and what my remit there was to help them enter the market primarily through an agent or a distributor or both. And what actually happened is, after it took an enormous amount of time to determine what their real and perceived needs were, rather than just trying to introduce them to people. At some point during that process, the managing director came over, and he and I spent a week together in North and South Carolina visiting with a variety of people. Ultimately, they located a distributor, and this was in 2010, I think. And then by 2013, they became the sole supplier to Klein, K-L-E-I-N, hand tools, which is the largest hand tool manufacturer in the world. And as far as I know, they still have a wonderful relationship there. Now, I was immensely impressed with the Welsh government's export trade program over that whole time. It was unique in that it provided financial support, including paying global consulting fees, to Welsh SMEs looking for agents and distributors who didn't have the resources to hire an in-market consultants like Global Consulting. In 2018, I began a relationship with Jacobs Agencies, the Upstate South Carolina Alliance. I'm their UK representative. My remit was and is to search for UK-based companies looking to set up in the upstate region of South Carolina. What sets the upstate South Carolina apart from other American regional economic development agencies is the landing pad program that Jacob mentioned. And they also help other European SMEs. It's not aimed only at Welsh SMEs. And in essence, I got the idea from the Welsh program, and it's almost identical. And what they do at no cost is to help companies, almost always SMEs, as Jacob described. Jacob and I plan to be together in the UK during the business week of 8-12 November. This will include a visit to certainly South Wales. I'm not sure we will get up to North Wales. I see somebody here is from Flintshire. And if you're interested in meeting with us, just let one of us know. So again, thank you for joining us, and good luck. Erica, back to you.
Great, thank you. So next slide, please. So I'm just going to cover some Welsh Government export support and how our overseas offices can assist your business in your journey to export over here. So as you may be familiar, Welsh Government has a comprehensive range of support mechanisms to help you on that export journey. Our support can help with first steps, finding opportunities, getting to market, and many of these programs are accessible through your trade advisor in Wales. So you may be familiar with them and have a trade advisor. If you don't have one, we can certainly connect you with one to get more information. And I know some of our trade advisors are on the call as well. In terms of Welsh Government support in overseas offices, so as I mentioned, I'm based in Atlanta covering the Southeast. I also have counterparts in other parts of the US and North America, and we also are globally. And I and my colleagues can cover a number of supports. So we provide local knowledge or guidance or signposting where you might need some assistance. We can help plug you into networks locally, make introductions to a network of support, including such bodies as connecting to potential clients or partners, the UK Department for International Trade, who have a robust network out here in the US. They also have industry-specific knowledge and can support you through their programs. We're plugged into British consulate networks. We can help connect you to British American business or other industry associations that might be supportive for your journey. And we can also make introductions to local service providers, whether that's legal, accounting, HR firms, banking, and specifically ones that are familiar with working with SMEs or British companies. And as well as we have on the call today, we can make introductions to city or state economic development agencies who can provide that extra support of local guidance, any tax incentives, any of their programs that help foreign companies set up here. We also host local events, webinars such as this one. We work on trade missions and exhibit at trade shows as well. So there's a number of things that we can do with you from the overseas office as well as back in Wales. And so we encourage you to take advantage of those. And if you need more information, like I said, please feel free to reach out to your trade advisor or to me following this. And like I said, we'll be sharing the contact details of the speakers today as well. Next slide, please. So now I think we'll just hand over to questions. If anyone has questions for the speakers today, please feel free to either raise your hand or put it into the chat box. Let's see, we have Alan Jones. Great, he's covering ITA North Wales. That's great. Thank you, Alan. So he shared his contact details. If any of you are based in North Wales and would like to connect, that is great. Is there anyone else that has any questions for Jacob or Russ about South Carolina or anything that they've covered today? Great. Okay. Well, as I mentioned, if there's any questions that anyone thinks about later, they'd like to reach out kind of individually in a more email private setting, then please feel free to do so. We'll be circulating the contact details as well as I mentioned, a short questionnaire. So appreciate you coming today and thank you very much to our speakers and your time. We appreciate your expertise and look forward to hopefully welcoming some of you companies to South Carolina, or if there's any other support that I can provide across the Southeast, please do let me know.
Thanks again, Erica.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.